I remember this saying today: the pen is mightier than the sword. And what usually comes to mind is the interpretation that the way of diplomacy is always better approach than any acts of violence or conflicts. But being that I'm really deep into my tarot studies lately and elemental studies, sword kind of took a new meaning, looking from that prism of the elements. In the tarot, the sword suit represents air, the element of air, and that's our intellect and our reasoning. And sometimes I can see it in certain cards as the role of ego. And as ego can be, of course, and is a very important part of our psyche and has a very important role to play, it can also be a bastard. I started thinking, if the pen is mightier than the sword, and the sword sometimes can be looked at as ego, then journaling is a way to confront that. Hello, my name is Petra. Welcome to my channel if you're new. Welcome back if you were here before. Today let's talk about journaling, being inspired by the tarot, everything related to the beautiful art on those cards, and how it relates to self-reflection. I mentioned the element of air and it being interpreted as our intellect, our reason, and it's a powerful tool. For example, it can be very, very powerful if we need to make certain decisions. But at the same time, it can hurt us very much and cause actual physical pain, even though the stuff's in our mind. And especially if you're prone to overthinking things, that can be a stuff of nightmares. And even more so if you let it affect your whole life and existence. It can make you think sometimes that there's no way out, but actually the bondages that you feel are just something you can easily get rid of if you use the tool properly. And when you master it, you're the king. So this is my take on these couple of cards that belong to the sword suit and the element of air. And what got us here is the saying, the pen is mightier than the sword. And if we go that route and think about the sword as the element of air, let's see what we can do with the pen. What I've learned in this past couple of years of studying the tarot and looking into all these beautiful visual prompts and learning a bit more about the structure, about the archetypes, about the elements and all the associations that they can contribute along with the art. The art is the association, the representation of the element, of the symbol, of the archetype. What happens when I look at this card and when I pick a card or I randomly select a card, the visual stimuli and the associations that come across immediately bring on a multitude of thoughts. And I'm very prone to overthinking stuff, and I'm very, very easily distracted and keeping all that in my head. And sometimes I choose a card or three, or I make a spread and let it sit out on my desk. And I keep thinking about him and finding meanings and finding correlations. And that's all good and well. But that's the swords, that's the air. I'm thinking about it. I'm not doing anything about it. And the action part is where it all happens. If you're on my channel, you probably keep a journal or a planner, and you're probably here because of the content I post related to that topic. But let me tell you how the tarot or oracle cards, or simply using art or archetypes, can contribute to your journaling practice. So not only is the tarot a powerful tool for self-reflection by itself, but so is journaling. Let's bring them together. As I said, I choose a deck, and I usually enjoy very rich decks, lots of color, symbolism, and even on the more abstract side, because that kind of inspires me more. And when I draw my cards, I get stuck in my head and I overthink. The real magic happens is when I open my journals and I contemplate on the card and on the card's meaning, on my interpretation. It just starts flowing. So most of these pages are related to cards and being prompted by an oracle card, a piece of art, a tarot spread. And when you put the pen to the paper, you kind of bypass a certain something in your mind. I'm not sure if I would call it ego. I'm not sure if I would call it some part of our mental processing unit, but there's a certain bypass going on, because only when I write it down and only when I let the ink flow, I come to certain questions or conclusions. Now, when I say question is, in my particular case, questions are usually the things that pop up. In my journal pages, I will find more questions than answers. But as a wonderful lady once said to me when we had a chat about it, questions are like opening the windows in your home and letting the fresh air come in. And sometimes you don't have the answer, but the fresh air and the breeze coming through the windows and moving those curtains will circulate and start up something. And yes, of course, answers are important. We all want answers and guidance and understanding, but sometimes a good question is a nice option too. In continuation to that, I want to share a couple of my recently favorite decks to use in this practice. And for the longest time, it has been the Mightier Tarot, and well loved and well used. The imagery is very interesting and it's abstract enough for my tastes. It's like a fantasy world, and they're really rich in color. The art is gorgeous. The guidebook is amazing. And if there's such thing as a favorite deck or a soul deck, I think this would be it, because every time I reach for it and every image I see, every card I draw, I always get such powerful insights, because they're so evocative and out of this world, and something that just speaks to me and inspires me to write and reflect. And yeah, again, I'm known to sit on my cards for days and tumble them around in my head, but when I finally do sit down and journal and do the work, do the action thing, the insights are amazing. So that's the Mightier. The one I have shown just a minute ago, it's called the Shimmering Veil by Cilla Conway. And again, an abstract one, outworldly. There are people in this deck, but this is the Ten of Swords. So, they are otherworldly, which is for me amazing. I feel more comfortable with this cosmic representation of the archetypes and the elements. It kind of speaks to you on a whole different level, and every single card is a work of art. They immediately provoke a reaction in me and kind of an intuitive interpretation. It's just something that from the first time I saw it made me feel very, very intrigued and in a certain way comfortable. But even though sometimes the insights I get are far from comfortable, but the deck itself is comforting. Next one is also the one I shown in the beginning. It's called the Pholarcos Tarot, and this one is a trimmed version. I bought secondhand just recently. It is so, I'm not gonna say fairy tale and I'm not gonna say storybook, but to me it's like a different dimension. I have found that this magical place is where I want to be when I work with the tarot. This, I don't know, behind the veil place. I do enjoy photo collage decks. I do enjoy realistic decks also. But when I want to get to some, let's say, different questions like, what am I? Or what is the universe? Or, I don't know, what is my soul? This is the place I want to habituate with my tarot cards. And this is the art that speaks to me immediately. And the last one I want to show today is actually a tarot and oracle. It's called Outgrow Yourself. These cards are actually inspired by the Thoth system. You have the keywords under there, and for every minor you also have the keyword that was assigned by, I believe, Aleister Crowley. So you won't get like the Three of Swords or the Five of Wands, but you'll get the keyword. And also every card has a little prompt. So for the Hangman, we have the grass is greener on the other side. For the last card, or follow your passion. For the Prince of Discs, be patient, things are set in motion. So you get the idea. I think the art is amazing. The beings presented here are very, very whimsical and very, very expressive, colorful and evocative, and I've been enjoying this one very, very much. And this beautiful artist is from Sweden, and I will link everything below. Okay, that's it for the tarot decks I use for this purpose, for the purpose of prompting me actually to journal about some topics I wish to explore. My take is more philosophical, I guess. My questions are more on that side of the spectrum, related to introspection and my spirituality and my studies of certain philosophical topics. But hey, it's fun, and I hope you will join me. And on that note, I would like to show you something new I'm excited to start. It's a Moleskine expanded notebook, And for the longest time, I guess in years, I have not been using a ruled notebook, so I got a little craving to write on ruled pages and with a ballpoint pen. So a moleskin entered my repertoire of journals, and it's just something I wish to keep and use for kind of more long-winded journaling. Journaling that's more like stream of consciousness and uncensored and maybe nonsensical. It's an experiment. I'm looking forward to see how it goes, but again, I will trust my tarot cards and the art and archetypes and the symbols to guide me in this journey. We'll see if I'll end up with a page full of questions or maybe an answer or two. I'm excited for this one. And just to make some sense of the things I've been showing you, this is my last year's journal, and this is my this year's journal for all journaling I do, and it's mostly related to everyday random journaling stuff or journaling about the tarot draws, the cards I worked with, or the spreads I used to answer certain questions or prompt me to journal. And this here is actually the Hobonichi Weeks, the planner I'm using for this year. When using the tarot, you start to see mundane things through a different lens. And even though I don't write or journal in this planner anything related to tarot, it seeps in. It's kind of here and there in the details, in the things I make, in the things I draw or create or collage. It's always somewhere in the background. And my tarot and my journaling practice is kind of there in the background, constantly influencing and enriching every experience in my life. Hope that makes sense. So we'll see if the pen is indeed mightier than the sword. I'm giving it a fair try and something to write about. Just wanted to share this little ramble with you, and thank you for joining me. Bye.